Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back, and today I have something a little different. I don't really want to put any images up because I don't want to get copyright flagged. But I'm gonna give my review of a movie today that I just watched. Just watched, brand spanking new, hot off the presses. Uh, that of Wicked. Um, Now, little backstory on me and my writing and my fictional stories and stuff. There's a lot of inspiration from Oz. I have to say I have a soft spot for Oz as a story and as a series. By the way, they are a series of books, the original Oz books. Fantastic, phenomenal work with Frank L. Baum. He was very creative. At the time, people were not very happy with him because the books were highly criticized for containing magic. Of course, back then, and it still happens today, but thankfully it's a lot rarer with the Christian church. People have eased up a little bit around fictional depictions of magic. You'll still find a few crazies, but um, there are a lot less people ranting and raving over every little book that has any depiction of magic or anything like that. I really wish we'd get rid of that mentality altogether because, personally speaking, I don't think a fictional depiction of magic or witchcraft or something that looks like it is necessarily going to have the repercussions of somebody actually searching that stuff out. I may be completely wrong. There may be a few crazy people that will do just that, but most people are like, huh, cool novel, cool book. You know, that being said, I think using magic for anything that is impossible as an excuse for why something impossible happened is kind of like a MacGuffin nowadays. And that's a whole nother discussion altogether. Um, but on with the movie review, I've got to say, uh, first off, applause for Ariana Grande and what is the lady's name that plays the Wicked Witch? Or Elphaba. Um, Let me look that up. Cynthia Erivo. That's her name. She plays Elphaba. Both of them do really well, and they uh, are absolutely amazing at playing off of one another. I think they really, I think they really made their parts their own. I think in some instances, Ariana Grande, she did worse as Glinda than Cynthia Erivo did as Elphaba, but not too bad. I think there were some instances where she put a few of her own touches on the character that it didn't work, and I think it could have been done in a little better way. Of course, Jeff Goldblum, he played the Wizard of Oz. Well played. Um, I'm not going to give any spoilers for anybody that's big into seeing this without spoilers, but There may be some spoilers if you haven't seen it yet, so go see the film. Go pause this video, watch the film. It's like 18 bucks on Amazon. It's not that expensive, y'all. It's like literally under 20 bucks for a digital purchase. Go watch it. It's fantastic. Chef's kiss. Well done. Now we're going to get into some spoiler territory. Oh, apparently Dr. Dillamond, which is a goat, was played by Peter Dinklage. And I didn't realize that's who played him, but he was very good there. And actually, that's kind of my favorite scene. There's this whole scene with Dr. Dillamond, and they're talking about the animals and how the animals are having their voice taken away because in Oz, until a certain point, the animals can talk and verbalize like everybody else, and they actually take the animals' voices away, and the animals turn slowly into feral creatures, like on in our world, in our realm, in our state of existence. And spoiler alert, it turns out it's the wizard that's doing all of this. The wizard who is played by Jeff Goldblum. Again, astounding performance. I think the only one I really didn't like their performance of, something was off about the lady that played Madame Morrible, Michelle Yeoh, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but y'all can look it up. She's very stilted, very stiff, and I don't see how, and it's that way in the play as well, because I have seen the play, so I know what happens in the movie, and I know what happens in the books. And by the way, if you're a kid and you're watching this, don't go read the books. I tried reading the books because I wanted to know what the play was like, and that's not safe for kids. Okay, we won't go into what happens in the books that didn't happen in the movies, but it's not safe for kids. We won't go into that. A lot of R and X-rated material, um, which really disappointed me. I'm one of those readers. I really hate smut on the page. I really hate X-rated material on the page. I hate it on screen too, but I I really dislike that people think they got to put it in there explicitly to be um watched or viewed to make their, excuse me, make their story better. It doesn't make the story better. It literally makes the story worse. And it makes me a little bit sad that sometimes stories that have nothing to them actually have, how do I put it? They get more press because they have sex on the screen or on the page that it doesn't really do well. It Most people, they get clapter or they get the shock and awe views, and that's all they get. It's nothing of substance. Like the last book that I read that had that stuff on the page, I don't even remember the title. It seems like it was some anthology, and half the stories, it was supposed to be a steampunk anthology, and I love the genre of steampunk, but there seems to be a lot of steampunk with smut and illicit material mixed in, and it just doesn't do well. Um, and that's actually kind of why I like The Wizard of Oz and all of the Oz books and Wicked the musical version, because there is a lot of practical effects and a lot of steampunkiness and that vibe that I absolutely love. Of course, Frank L. Baum, I think, was the Mac Daddy of all things steampunk. And excuse me, let me take a sip of my tasty beverage here. There we go. Thank you. Um, so I really think that that actually really helps. I like the vibe, and I think a lot of people like the steampunk vibe. And I tried to copy that and put that into because it's all of the best books that I've had that I've read have had that vibe in it, and so I try to put that vibe somewhat in anything that I write. Um, Even if it's realistic, I try to put an old world feel on it so that everything can be kind of viewed through that lens. Because I think there is an overabundance of mechanisms and technology today in our modern era that make things in a way too easy. Um, you know, nowadays you want to find something out, get who do you ask? You ask Google. You don't spend hours in a library anymore looking for the answer to your question. And that's good for you personally, but for a narrative, it's not very good at all. There needs to be some effort put into researchers and trying to come up with these answers and things like that. Because somebody doesn't necessarily want to read, hey, this guy found this answer that he was looking for like 5 seconds on Google. He just didn't want to read about that. That didn't make a very interesting book. Um, but again, back to the movie. Um, One of the things that always disappoints me about film adaptations of Wicked and play adaptations of Wicked, I really wish they spent more time on the whole plot of the animals. And I know that there's only so much you can do in a play, and in a movie, but especially if they're trying to pad timing, I think they spent too much time trying to pad the musical numbers and make the musical numbers longer. They could have easily added more of the plot from the book about the animals, the different problems that the animals were having. And the whole thing with the animals, and look, a lot of the animal rights people have taken this um, issue and made it their own, and a lot of the LGBT party has made this issue, this film, and this play their own. And really, it's not about LGBT, it's not about animal rights, it's about anybody who feels like an outsider um, because of authoritarianism. The problem that I have with the way people have portrayed Wicked so far, which is why I really like the film and the movie so much because I read more into it than most try to do. They try to limit it to one box. It's not about um, the LGBT party or animal rights or anything like that. Though there is those there is the animal rights thing mentioned quite often. Okay, and fair play, that's mentioned because the animals can talk in that film and they can't in real life, and there's that whole thing of being kind to the earth, which I agree we should definitely do. We can actually talk about this another time because I'm trying to relegate it specifically to the film. Um, but there is I will say there is a fine line between let's take care of the earth, let's make sure that we don't overdo it with killing of animals. If you're going to kill them, use what you kill, eat what you kill. If you can't eat what you kill, then don't kill it, you know. And but there's a fine line between that and don't ever kill an animal ever. Don't ever eat an animal ever. Um, I know people that are like that, and I can appreciate that viewpoint. And I think that's great if you choose to live that your life that way. I don't, and don't get me wrong, I've fasted from meat for a time, but I did it because I felt like the Lord was leading me to for a time. And I'll tell you the truth, my parents did not like it very much, and I think we need to uh, work on, of course, having a more balanced diet. And I think it's good to fast from certain foods for a while. If you want to fast from sugar, if you want to fast from meat for an extended period of time, I think it helps cleanse the body. If you want to do a juice fast from time to time, I think that helps cleanse the body. Um, but I don't think going without protein, going without meat, going without all of these different things for long extended periods of time is 100% the best thing for the human body. There was one thing about, um, again, the lady that played Elphaba, um, Cynthia Erivo. She said that going vegan years ago was the best thing for her body. If that really is was the best thing for her, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. Right now, though, again, the Wicked movie is 1999. Um, I don't think that was what I bought it for. I think I have a discount though because I'm a Prime member. Um, anyway, back to it. Basically, my favorite scene is the scenes with, again, Dr. Dillamond, played by Peter Dinklage, which, again, fantastic job. Peter, you're great. Always good at anything I've seen you in. I've even seen clips of Game of Thrones, and I've loved your work. Well played. Well played, sir. But the whole thing with Peter Dinklage, with Dr. Dillamond, is Elphaba is his friend. Okay, that good friends in the film, and Dr. Dillman is made fun of because he's a talking goat and he's playing his. He's the only person in class that isn't a human. He's the only teacher that isn't a human. Apparently, there were teachers before that were animals. Apparently, there was a leopard or a cheetah or something that taught a math class or something like that, solving equations. Um, it was kind of mentioned passively, but apparently Oz used to be filled with talking animals, and now there aren't, and they're trying to figure that out. Um, they're all kind of being taken away and put in, and it's revealed they're being put in cages. Um, and really, and this is part of the reason why I don't think that this is LGBT exclusive, and I don't think it's animal rights exclusive. But after, alert, Dr. Dillman is sacked and taken away and put in a cage and told to go, um, they receive a new teacher. And the class is history, right? And he says, I'm not going to teach you history. I am instead going to talk to you about our bright future in Oz. And starts talking about putting the animals in cages, putting the animals in cages. I reiterate, putting the animals in cages and getting them to stop speaking. Now, I have to say it. What does that sound like to you guys? Okay? What does that sound like to you guys? Sounds like they're silencing free speech and creating political dissidents that they don't like, and they are creating an enemy and putting them away for a very long time without a trial. Doesn't that doesn't that sound like something familiar? We won't go into specifics. We won't mention specifics because that could get me flagged. But doesn't that sound like something familiar that happened like starting 4 years ago when certain people took certain offices and people were locked away for going up to certain buildings, even though they were let in, even though they were kind of guided through the building, took on a glorified walking tour, and only one person during that particular excursion experience was seriously hurt. And it wasn't done by one of the people on the guided walking tour. It was done by one of the guards because they freaked out. Doesn't that sound familiar? You know, it kind of does to me. I'm just saying, it's my point is the whole message is not necessarily pro animal rights, not necessarily pro LGBT, but if you take it that way, that's your opinion. You're welcome to have that opinion. That's the great thing about America. We all got our opinions. We're like, it's like elbows. Everybody got them, and they're usually rubbing in the middle of everybody else's. But to me, it's kind of like V for Vendetta. Everybody latches on to that one lesbian love story in V for Vendetta and says it's a pro gay film. But it's not a pro gay film. That's like 10 minutes of the film. It's anti authoritarianism, anti big government, anti control. That's what the message of the film is truly about. And don't get me wrong, you're like I said, you're welcome to your opinions, and if you have that opinion, go ahead and share it. That's great. Wonderful. Awesome. Um but I disagree with that being all there is to the film. If that's all there is to the film, it doesn't make it a very good film. Everybody needs to be able to identify with film and cinematography. Otherwise, nothing unifies us. That's the whole thing about art, you know. Um, and that's all I gotta really say about that particular scene. But I've got to mention again the practical effects. Absolutely amazing. Chef's kiss. I don't know who did the set design, who did anything like that. I'm not that big of a movie buff. If something is good, I will call it good. If something is bad, I will call it bad. I would say that this is overall a great film. My one criticism would be I think they padded the musical numbers a little too long, and I think they could have, if they really wanted to lengthen the story a little bit, use a little bit more of the book to pad the time so that they could actually have a 2 hour movie. Because the books are great too, but again, you got to be careful with the books and what you add. Because personally, I'm not the biggest fan of, again, smut on the screen, smut on the page. Absolutely wonderful work though, guys. My absolute favorite part, um, if I had to pick My absolute favorite part, my favorite character, Jonathan Bailey, Fiero. He played Fiero, which, spoiler alert, in the um, second part of the film, in the second part of the movie, which will be coming out, I don't know, 2026 maybe, 2025. I don't know when exactly they'll be coming out. Uh, but spoiler alert, Fiero turns out to be in Wicked the Scarecrow, just as Bach the Munchkin turns out to be the Tin Woodsman. Um, Again, spoiler alert, but there you go. And but his entire performance was absolutely phenomenal. I would say that every scene he was in, his entire performance just kind of drew me in, sucked me in. There were kind of a few times where he pretty much saved the scene because something about the way Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande were behaving were kind of drawing me out a little bit, and he would come on screen and I'd be like, "Oh, this guy's back," and he just kind of took over. And his stage presence is pretty awesome. So, and especially his performance in the musical number "Dancing Through Life," he really took on the Scarecrow movements really, really well, and you could almost hint at it. It was hinting at who he was going to be eventually, and the lyrics hint at that as well too. There's a point in time where he talks about brainlessness and how brainlessness is the way to go and how schools don't really teach you the lessons you need to know. And I highly agree with the message of that song because the education system has sucked and it's sucked for a very long time. Um, and he that's part of what makes him in the plays and in the movie my absolute favorite character. Um, but he has the fluidity of the Scarecrow in his dance moves, and a lot of the songs that he sings tends to have a lot of the different hints to him being the Scarecrow in the future, which has caused people who haven't seen the film, haven't seen the play, and have just seen the film and haven't read the books to just speculate wildly that he is going to be the Scarecrow. Spoiler alert, guys! That have not seen either one of those and have just seen the movie. Yeah, he is in fact the Scarecrow. You're right. It was written that way on purpose. Um, but I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I plan on recording some other stuff eventually, but for now, I'm just doing this kind of review of the film and again telling you guys watch this stuff. It's amazing. Watch this movie. It's amazing. And Ben Shapiro, I'll give you a shout out because I have to criticize your hatred of this movie. I really do because you're not really grading it on a fair scale. And the reason I say you're not grading it on a fair scale, Ben Shapiro, is because you're not actually grading it as a movie. You're grading it based on the play that you saw And I don't know if you actually read the books, but you're definitely doing it based on the play and the musical itself. And I don't think that's really a fair thing because you're grading an adaptation of the musical, yes, but the movie is clearly trying to be its own thing. Oh, one final thing. I gotta give props to the appearance of Kristen Chenoweth and Indina Menzel, who, if you don't know, were the original appearance of who were the original appearance of the original players of Elphaba and Glinda, respectively. Um, and I will say one thing that Ben actually did mention that I agree with, but I'm going to add to it. They outshined Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo in the scene that they were together in them with, but I believe that they intentionally intended to do that. I think literally it was a joke that was planned by the directors and by the actors that hopefully went on without a hitch. I but it just seemed planned to me. It wasn't spontaneous in any way, shape, fashion, or form. It wasn't, it's like everybody looks at these cameos as though they are the haha funny jokes and the actors don't know about it, but let's be honest, they don't really have any way of keeping anything spontaneous. Somebody probably already knew, and the actors were probably nervous to share screen time with the original duo. So that's where I think that probably came from. And so yeah, definitely either go see Wicked in the theater or go buy it on Amazon or do whatever you need to do to watch this thing because it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I really enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying the idea of as a fan of anything based in Oz. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do next with part two. I really hope that part two comes out soon. Actually, let's look at when part two is coming. Apparently, it's expected next November, so look forward to that this winter. Um, I'm actually looking forward to it myself. Uh, I'm most interested to see how they'll make the characters look and how they'll add their own flair when they change. When Bach becomes the Tin Woodsman, when Jonathan Bailey who plays Fiero becomes the Scarecrow. Are they going to make them look like they look in the books? Or are they going to make them look different? I'm looking forward to that. So have a good one, and I'll hopefully talk to you guys really, really soon. We'll have to talk about other stuff in another episode really, really soon. And there is my review on Wicked and official endorsement. Go watch it. Go support anti-authoritarianism. Fight the power. Go right on. Uh, by the way, fun historical fact before I actually go. The original Wizard of Oz was actually anti um anti World War II German propaganda. I can't actually say the word because YouTube will flag me and make sure that. But you know who I'm talking about, the guy with the mustache that everybody don't like. That hopefully he's in the ninth circle of he double hockey sticks hanging from meat hooks. You know that kind of stuff. So I'll talk to you guys later. Anyway, that's the truth. It's anti um 1940s World War II German propaganda. Um, pro America, pro whatever propaganda. You know, you can actually do some research. Just actually, I can say the full name probably. Anti-National Socialist Party propaganda. Let's put it that way. Of Germany. Anti-National Socialist Party of Germany propaganda. You can look that up, and it'll show you what the National Socialist Party of Germany is, or was back in the 1940s. So, yeah, that's the final factoid. But definitely go watch the Wicked movie. Go watch everything going on there. Um, and really think about the fact that it is anti-authoritarianism. That's what it fully is. In fact, I would go even further. It's anti-pride because the whole purpose of the villain of the movie, spoiler alert again, the villain of the movie is actually the wizard. They turn him into a much more evil character than he was in the original books of Frank L. Baum. In the books of Frank L. Baum, the wizard is actually a nice character, but a bit of a charlatan. He claims to be a wizard, but he's actually just a technical genius, and that's all he's good for. Um, and in this one, he's actually behind um, Oz's takeover. He had like this whole massive takeover of Oz, and a whole plot to make sure that the animals stay silent. Yes, he's behind shutting the animals up, which is why it's an anti-authoritarian book. Um, he also, again, spoiler alert for Wicked. Um, I'm going to put a hashtag spoilers in the header of this. Um, in the actual play, he turns out to be Elphaba's father, which is why her skin is actually green in the book. She is the product of two worlds, and that is the reason that she is green. And that's the reason she also has such amazing powers, is because her parents are from two different worlds. I say parents, but it's not really parents. It's actually more like sires. Her mom loved her enough, but she died when Elphaba was a very young age. Um, and her dad actually kind of blamed her for it. That's the whole story of their relationship because her dad was not actually her dad. Her dad actually turned out to be the wizard. Uh, her mom and the wizard actually, it turns out in the play and in the book, were hooking up on a semi-regular basis, and um, her mom got pregnant by the wizard, and Elphaba was the result, which is why she has such amazing telekinetic powers. That's her main power is telekinesis. In the books and in the film and in the play, that tends to be the way that her powers show up is she's telekinetic. She can move things with her mind, and it's worse when her emotions go haywire. Her emotions basically kind of cause things to happen. There's actually a part in the movie where her emotions go haywire, and it actually causes poppies to appear all throughout the classroom that she's in. She's in Mr. Dillon's classroom, and she causes everybody to fall asleep. It's basically a sleeping spell. And there's only one other person other than her that's awake, and that's Fiero. And they have this whole moment where they carry the lion cub out into the woods, and that's actually how the Cowardly Lion is basically able to talk and survive in Oz. Because again, we have to have an excuse for the Cowardly Lion, and apparently the whole reason the lion is cowardly is he was so used to the cage that when he was left alone outside of the cage, he couldn't fend for himself. He was very young and he had nobody to teach him to be courageous, which that's a metaphor for life if I ever heard one. If you don't have anybody to teach you to be courageous, how can you be? How can you be? You know, and that's a whole thing with men nowadays. They don't really have that courageousness because they're taught that masculinity is evil. And so any attempt to be courageous and be a man is kind of looked down upon. Okay. I'm not for sexual harassment or anything like that. But nowadays, any attempt to make a move on a woman, you know, is seen as sexual harassment. You flirt with the young lady. If the wrong manager walks up to you, or the wrong person in general walks up to you, or you have come up to the wrong lady and started flirting with her, oh, you know, you don't necessarily get to do that and keep your job. You get basically let go or wrote up because you dared to flirt with the woman. For example, okay, this is an example from my life. What do you know? This is basically turning into a fish in my pond episode. There was a older lady, right? I, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that I'm flirting with an older lady. I'm more likely to flirt with someone a little bit younger than me than I am older. Why? Because honestly, I one of my biggest desires, I've talked about this, is eventually to be a dad. It's part of the reason I'm trying to find something that is working from home or working from somewhere that's not some office somewhere because I want to be present when I have kids of my own and they need me, or I have a wife and she needs me. I want to be able to, when the time comes, take that call and say, "Hey, honey, how you doing? what you need, and literally shut this thing off and run to the aid of whoever I'm needing to help, whether that's my son, my daughter, my wife, whoever they turn out to be. You know, I'm I don't have any of that right now. I'm single. I don't really like the fact that I'm single. I have all kinds of things like date ideas, proposal ideas for that time period, and I have nobody to actually use those on. It makes me kind of sad, but I would like that eventually. But the point is, there was this older lady. I was being friendly with her, right? Not flirty, but friendly. I was basically saying, "Hey, um, talking to her about some of my healing experiences that I've experienced." And she was asking back. And honestly, there was a manager, no, not a manager, supervisor at the time that was always on my case. Did not like to hear me talk religion at all. Very politically correct, very authoritarian, very Wizard of Oz like. You know what I'm saying? He he he, he was the guy that was so authoritarian. He had his rules, and his rules were right, and nobody else could be right about anything. Everybody else was wrong, and his rules were so absurd. And he would talk about his side of the political aisle all the time. Like, he talked for nearly 10 minutes one day about how Medicare for all was the greatest system on the planet. And the second I even opened my mouth, I didn't even get a word out. He said, "We don't really have time for that discussion here. We don't really need to hear your opinion about this here." I'm like, "Hold on, hypocritical much? You're just here talking for 10 minutes while I'm on my 15-minute break about how Medicare for all is the greatest system known to man, and you're talking bad at me because I opened my mouth one thing and even got one syllable out of my opinion." And he said, and he didn't even seem to care that I had a real problem with the way he was behaving. So he wasn't a very good supervisor. You understand what I'm talking about. He was literally the guy that would go and look for you to slip up so that, especially if you were remotely conservative, and he would do this so he could write you up. He wanted his way to be promoted. That, and I'm going to call him O'Leary, Mr. O'Leary. We'll call him O'Leary because he uh, he was Irish. So, well, he is Irish. He's of Irish descent. So we'll call him O'Leary. Um, and when I tell you O'Leary was a liberal through and through, and a leftist through and through, and um, he is indeed a liberal through and through. Um, my first interaction with him was actually, and I've talked about this before, at Bernie's Home Repair. We would have discussions in the break room, my friends and I, and it was a common practice for some of these discussions to get political. I have never seen me people get called in so fast as I did that day. Um, I was actually told to clock in 30 minutes early for this, and I thought it was something a little more important than a tiny little political discussion. And what the discussion was about was actually books. And I told you how I don't like sex on the page. I don't like smut. I don't like anything dirty in my books. And that was basically what the discussion was about. I said, we were talking about books and the Book It programs and how great they were for literacy. You know, the ones that would give you a free personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut. And I said, I wonder if they still do that. By the way, if y'all know if they still do that, please let me know. Comment down below. Do they still do the Book It programs? I do think that's a good idea for literacy. But I told my friend who was working with me at the time, um, he, I say friend, he was my cousin in law at the time. And I said, honestly, I don't know that I want literacy programs nowadays because the books that they have now, they kind of are full of inappropriate material, I think, for kids. And I stressed that I thought LGBT material was inappropriate for children. I said that I think that kids are too young to be reading about something like that, and especially if it gets super graphic, because I have seen some kids material that got kind of graphic with this stuff. It's disgusting how graphic some of it can get. And really, I think if it's something that outside of the norm, if you're going to require that for reading, the parents need to be told and they need to be included and they need to be able to say, hold on, you're reading this to my kid. I, I want to read it first before you read it to my kid. If I don't like what I see, I will sign a note right now saying don't make my kid read this book. He's excused. Um, I really think that is going to start happening more if it hasn't already. Parents are starting to get more involved because they don't necessarily want their kids reading about that. Because you know what? That does lead to them having certain discussions earlier than they're supposed to because kids get confused and they start asking questions that they shouldn't ask at that point. You don't want to necessarily have a talk with your kid about the birds and the bees at 6, 7 years old because they're asking questions about why does it seem so different this way versus the other? You know, that's why I think some of these books they need to be kept as generic as possible if we're going to have children's books and things like that. I think there needs to be a difference in the way relationships are portrayed in children's literature. You know, Dick and Jane didn't necessarily have a couple holding hands on the pages. They had, yeah, mom and dad because that's, you know, um, the way they were written. And they could easily have mom and Aunt Trudy and have that family living together and whatnot and not necessarily show any bedrooms or anything like that. You know, you can do things generally and include some things and not necessarily have to get super graphic about kissing or anything like that and or hand holding or things like that because kids don't really need to know about that just yet. They don't. They need a simple story that teaches good moral values. When they get to be about 9, 10, you can start introducing as a parent, your choice of whatever relationship you have, you can say what you want to about relationships and just kind of slowly introduce it bit. But I know when I was growing up, I was given the talk at a normal age for my age group, you know what I mean? But I didn't quite understand all of it. I should have, I don't know, maybe been taking notes or something like that because personally, how do I put it? I found out about certain parts of the process of puberty in the middle of class because it kind of happened in the middle of class and I had to be told, "Hey, don't do that. Go off to the restroom, take care of the issue and wait, come on back and try not to let that happen again." Um Basically at the time I was taking medications that made certain parts itch. That's the embarrassing little bit of the video today. That's basically what happened. And when I got home, I told my parents about it. They're like, "Did you not know that that happens?" I'm like, "No, I didn't know that that happens." And they said, "But we told you. That was part of the discussion. Do you not remember?" I said, "No, I don't remember that part." And they're like, "What are we gonna do with you, Bryce?" Um, and I said, Um, I said, "I really don't know." And but yeah, we'll talk about relationships and stuff like that at another point. But that's basically my review. And I don't know how we got in on how inappropriate things are. Oh, that's right, Mr. O'Leary. We'll continue that story real quickly. But right in the middle of the discussion about the LGBT literature that I was having with a friend. By the way, this was a private conversation with a friend. There was nobody else in the room. Now, I don't know if you know this, guys, but I'm fairly loud. So, this gentleman uses that as an excuse, Mr. O'Leary, to say, "Bryce, um, I need to talk with you for a sec. You on lunch?" I said, "Absolutely, I'm on lunch." He said, "How long have you been on lunch?" I said, 30 minutes, sir. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to need you to clock in early because this is important." And let me warn you right now, guys, if you're ever at work and your manager or your supervisor or anybody in power tells you to clock in early, I just want to tell you and warn you now that is an illegal move that corporations are not actually allowed to make. If they try to make that move, tell them no, that that is illegal for them to do. They are not allowed to ask you to do that. If you are on your lunch and your lunch is an hour long and they ask you to clock in 30 minutes early for without giving you a specific reason, especially if that reason is to write you up and to talk to you about a issue, they are doing something that they shouldn't do, and you have a right to tell them no, and you can tell them no, and they can't fire you for it. I learned that about 2 years after this incident happened, and I was told by my manager at the time that if I had told somebody about that, about him clocking me in early or having me clock in early to write me up that he could have been wrote up himself and he might have been fired for it. I said, well, crap. If I'd have known that, I'd have told somebody long ago, but he told me not to tell nobody. And the idea is that they try to trap you in a don't tell anybody about this scenario because if you do, we'll fire you kind of thing. And they basically want to squash any opinions that are not politically correct and they don't like very well. Another reason that I'm trying to find a episode, trying to find something that I can do from home, that I can kind of work on my own stuff and not necessarily have to be tied down to somebody company wise or tied down to somebody job wise. And I would rather work for myself. I would rather record a podcast like this or play some video games like I do with Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which I'm getting back to, guys. I promise. I'll be playing some more of that tomorrow. Um, I just gotta figure out how to work that kind of stuff together because, again, I can't stream like I'd like. It's not like it used to be where I can stream it and then upload because honestly, we have not so good internet and we just want to make sure that all of our bandwidth is kind of covered. But so Mr. O'Leary, he has me clock in, has me sit down in the ASM, and then proceeds to read me a new one saying, as long as you're on the property, anything you say can get you fired, whether you like it or not. I tried to tell him that in America we have free speech. Well, apparently, that free speech doesn't mean a hill of beans on privately owned property. When you work for somebody, privately owned, somebody that owns private property and they don't like what you say, they have a right to either kick you off or they have a right to fire you. I told him, I said, hold on. This is Bernie's Home Repair. This is a public place that people come to that they buy stuff. This is not somebody's house. I could see what you're talking about if you're talking about somebody's house, but this is not somebody's house. Are you telling me that you can kick a customer out for saying something that you don't like, for a political speech that you don't like? Are you telling me that that's going to be something that you do? And they're like, no, I'm not going to say that because that is not something we would do. But with you guys, we have more control because you work for us. I said, that's not right, though. That is not morally a good thing for a company to do, especially if you're going to have your people here at Bernie's Home Repair for 40 hours a day and not give them a set schedule, not give them a place where they can speak freely, not even on the premises. He recommended actually the internet of all places. I said, the internet's no better than here. The internet can have you banned from a site because they don't like something you say. Right now, Elon Musk, he's in hot water because, um, going back to the present, because people are telling him, hey, when it comes to the um, certain regulations that allow foreign people to stay here, They need to be redone and reworked because there are good, solid American people who can't find a job that love this country that really deserve a job. And he says, yeah, but I have a right to hire the cheapest labor possible, even if it's not entirely legal. Or even if the laws have been reworked to make something legal that ought not be. And yeah, I am criticizing Elon Musk in this issue because Elon Musk, he's a good businessman, but that is not moral. You should be looking for American workers first. And I don't care how much you have to pay them. If that means less American workers, if that means less workers get jobs because you're hiring American workers instead of somebody that's come over here illegal and didn't actually go through the process to become an American, you're going to be working with less workers because I really don't like the idea that, and I see it every day working at Bernie's Home Repair. Illegals come in, they are working a job, usually construction or factory work around here because I live in a small town in Arkansas. Um, and they'll come in with hundreds upon hundreds in their wallet, more hundreds than I make in a 2 week period. They'll have like eight hundreds in their wallet, and they'll give me two or three of them, and they'll have a whole big cartload of stuff because they don't pay taxes and they don't pay their fair share. They want to talk about the millionaires and billionaires paying their fair share. I guarantee you, if all of the illegal immigrants were legal citizens and paying their fair share, we wouldn't have near as much debt as we do because we wouldn't be actually paying them to sit on their butt, 50% of them, and actually collecting taxpayer benefits when they're not taxpayers, and they would be paying their taxes because they would be American citizens and they wouldn't have the ability to collect their paycheck and cash under the table. Yes, I went there, guys. I went there because I've seen it over and over and over. I've seen, and I'm not going to degrade these people completely because I think they're good people. I've met some that have the biggest work ethic on the planet. They work harder than me, some of them, and I work pretty hard because I've actually, um, I actually try to do my job well and make sure that it gets done proper in the best way possible. And I want to make sure that people understand I'm not anti being entitled to what you have earned. I'm against high taxes, and I really like the idea of almost no taxes at all. But I believe that if you are in America, you should be paying your taxes, and if you're not because you're illegal and you sitting on your behind, you're hurting me. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these people they do get taxpayer benefits and they do sit on their behind and they do 50% of them get free money from the government all the time. They get SNAP, they get food stamps, they get things like that. And the reason I know is I've actually seen them pull this stuff out when they're shopping or when they're doing their thing. And the reason that hurts me is guess what? I pay for that stuff. That's me. That's you. That's anybody that is an American citizen, you pay for that. You pay for them to sit and to get that paycheck, or to get that extra paycheck that you don't get. Because sometimes, yes, it is extra on top of stuff they already make. Sometimes they do make more than you, and because they don't actually have any of that on the record, they can pile that up with the government benefits, and so they're walking around richer than you or me, and then they go and pay for the groceries and stuff like that with food stamps. That bugs me. That irks me. And look, uh, it's not just the illegal immigrants that have this problem. It there are tax-paying citizens that ought not be on these benefits that are. I have a cousin right now. There is absolutely nothing wrong with him. He does all kinds of drugs. He does all kinds of awful, terrible things, and he sits on his butt and he gets a check every month, and that's what he does. He gets a check every month. He hangs out with his buddies. He goes and buys junk and doesn't do a lick of work. It's not like when I do work and I still don't have enough, and yet for some reason I have too much to try to get any help, and they say, "Oh, well, you just need to try a little harder. Try a little harder. Try a little harder." At some point, I've tried all that I can. So, that is where I stand on the taxes and taxpayer benefits and things like that. It's not really that I'm against any of these programs existing, it's the fact that there are people who have them that don't need them or shouldn't have them because they're too capable. And instead of them continuing to be on those things, we should take them off and we should say, okay, either A, and especially the illegal immigrants, I think we need to find a database of each and every one of them and have a translator if they need to. Okay, we need to go and knock at their door and very politely say, "Sir, ma'am, whoever you are, you have two choices. Two choices. You learn English and become an American citizen." And I don't mean learn to speak it fluently like, "Hello, sir, how are you today?" That kind of stuff. No, no, no. I mean actually learn to speak English. You can speak it with a thick Spanish accent that I can barely understand if you want to. Okay? That's fine. That's fine. But learn to speak it enough to where I'm not having to pull up a translator app and type text into the translator app at Bernie's Home Repair because no habla inglés, no habla inglés, and that's all you'll say to me because you don't speak English and you want me to know you don't speak English. And I've literally asked them through the translator app, have you ever thought about learning English so that you can communicate better? And they shake their head no. Like they don't have any interest in learning my language that I speak on a regular basis. this has only happened once or twice because honestly, it's getting so politically correct and so politically charged nowadays. If you say that kind of stuff, you can get let go really quick. And I try to make sure that people understand. My problem is not that I'm bigoted or that I don't want people to come here. I want you to come here if you want to come here, but you got to put forth the effort. I've got a friend right now that says all the time he wants to come to America. I said, come, come, actually come. And he's like, I can't get there. I can't get there. I said, why not? He's like, I don't have a way to get there. I said, you got legs, don't you? You got legs, right? He said, yes. Start walking. Start walking. He's like, between here and there, it's desert. It's desert. I said, there's another country, isn't there? That's not desert. You can walk around the desert and find another country that's not desert, right? He's like, yes. I said, do those countries have open borders? He says some of them. I said, then go find them. Go have the open borders. Start actually working to come here and actually work for a visa for that country and work hard, and eventually you can transfer to the United States because you'll learn English, you'll learn the citizenship test information because they'll have all the resources available because where he's at right now, he's very good at technology. He loves to work with technology. He wants to repair computers and things like that. Um, and he has a great aptitude for it. And they don't really have the resources there for him to learn more. I said, start walking because he complains about how totalitarian the place he's living at in Nigeria happens to be. I said, start walking. You can walk. He's like, you don't understand how hard it is. There's some strict border controls in some of the countries that surround us. I said, start walking. Keep going. He thinks I'm joking. No, keep walking. If you and I will say that to anybody who wants to come here. I'm not pro open borders by any stretch of the imagination. I want strict border control here. But if somebody is going to be stupid enough to have open borders or to have lax border control, use it to your advantage, especially if you're not going to hurt anybody. Use it to your advantage. Actually find a way to come to one of those countries with open borders and actually live there for a bit, learn what you need to learn to become an American citizen, go through the process as much as possible, and eventually go and become an American citizen and move to America. It's not really, I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult, but it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. It yes, it's hard because anything worth doing is hard. And I really, like I said, I really believe anybody that wants to come here should be able to legally. And I believe, I almost could say, while we need strict border control, we need to make it easier to become an American citizen so more people can come here that are good. And I think we need to kick out the ones that are bad and start actually saying, you're not an American citizen anymore because you're promoting this that's not American. You know, if you're promoting, like, say, the idea that the idea of socialism, the idea that you should be able to take what somebody else has made and say, this is mine now, because it's not fair for you to have it because there's other people that don't and they need it more than you do. Um, I think that should be considered anti-American, and I think you you do need to be told, hey, this is why this is wrong. If you do not change, you it we're not going to kick you out, but it may be highly encouraged that you leave and go to one of those socialist countries that you love so much, and we'll make it really easy for you to go because we're going to make it easy for one of these other people who love America, who love freedom, who are stuck over here in these third world countries to come here and live and become an American citizen because they love America. You don't. So you can just go, and we'll take one of these other people that love America, that love freedom, that love our way of life, and you two can swap places for a time. It could be like an exchange program. And when they realize, oh hey, I messed up. I actually like America. I Then we can talk about finding somebody else that really doesn't like America and bringing them back. Once they've learned their lesson, because they got to learn the lesson at some point in order for this to actually work long term. Um, but I also believe you should have to put forth the effort to become an American. I don't think, for example, I don't think you should be able, and this is something that I've never really thought out fully, so forgive me if this insults some people, but I don't like it. I find it insulting when somebody from a Spanish speaking country starts carrying on a full blown private conversation right in front of me. Okay? For example, right? I This has happened to me in a Mexican restaurant at one point in time. Um Two of the waiters and waitresses started carrying on full blown conversations with me or with their buddy while me and my family are just sitting there and we're waiting on our order and we've been there for 10 minutes and we're not sure what they're talking about. Are they talking about us? Right. And it's insulting to me. Number one, you're at a job, you're not at a talking position. And don't get me wrong, I like to talk at work. I really do. It's part of the reason that I like my job so much. The customers at Bernie's Home Repair, they really like to talk to me, and they like hearing what I have to say about any given issue that they have. I said, and I can tell them, here's what you need to do, da 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 da, and they'll ask me questions about what I think about certain topics and stuff, and I'll either say, listen, we can't get into this conversation here, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I agree with you, or I just say, we can't get into that conversation here, depending on the situation that we're talking about. Um, like one of the people commented about how good the prices were getting because the prices had actually dropped like crazy. Um, for I think it was caulking or something like that, some kind of silicone based caulking. It had dropped down to like $6 when it was like 20 or something like that at one point. And he said, "Man, that's really come down." I said, "Hopefully it comes down a little bit more and stays down, huh?" He's like, "Absolutely right." With certain people coming into office, I said, "I can't talk about that, but mm-hmm, that kind of stuff." Um, One of my favorite jokes is um, when it comes to inflation is I've been telling people for years I can fix this inflation in like 5 seconds. Just point me to the source of the problem. Let me get a ladder. I'll cut a big old hole in it. It'll never bother us again. Because, inflation, ventilation, that kind of thing. Um, anyway, that's kind of my talking for today. It went a little more political, so this is a more Fish in My Pond episode. I think I'll just call this Wicked Review and More when I upload it. So let me know what you guys think, and I will number this, I guess, number 2, because we've had a podcast before, but I will just skip over those, and we'll let the Wicked Review speak for itself. And I'll actually create a hashtag for the Wicked Review. That way, I will be able to maybe hopefully get more traffic and more subscribers that way. So that'd be kind of cool. See some more people. So have a great rest of your night, and I will see you guys next time. Hopefully, next time is very, very soon, especially if this works. So I'll let you go. Bye.